That roll of parchment paper in your kitchen drawer right now? There's a good chance it's coated in what the EPA calls forever chemicals. Chemicals linked to thyroid cancer, kidney disease, and immune system damage. Chemicals that never break down in your body. When an EPA-certified lab tested popular brands, some of the biggest names in your grocery store failed. Reynolds, Kirkland, store brands you've been trusting for years. These chemicals are called PFAS. There are over 15,000 of them, and the CDC confirms 98% of Americans already have measurable levels in their blood. One way they get in? Through the parchment paper touching your food at 400 degrees. Not every brand is a problem, though. So let's go through the 11 brands you need to avoid and the 5 that are actually safe to put in your oven. Starting with the one that's going to surprise you the most. Brand number 1, Reynolds Kitchens Parchment Paper. This one hurts because Reynolds is probably the most recognized name in parchment paper. It's in nearly every grocery store in America, and Reynolds actually markets their parchment paper with the claim that it contains no added PFAS. But when an EPA-certified lab tested Reynolds parchment paper in 2021, fluorine was detected at 14 parts per million. Now, is 14 parts per million a massive number? No, it's well below the 100 parts per million threshold that some researchers use for intentional addition. But here's the problem. If Reynolds claims no added PFAS, why is fluorine showing up at all? Either it's coming from contaminated raw materials, or the supply chain isn't as clean as they say. And for a company that size with that kind of marketing budget, the fact that they can't deliver a completely clean test result is concerning, especially when smaller brands with a fraction of their budget are testing at non-detect levels. Reynolds also uses bleached paper in their standard line, which introduces another concern. Traditional chlorine bleaching produces dioxins and furans, which the World Health Organization classifies as persistent organic pollutants with a half-life of 7 to 11 years in your body. And it gets worse, and Reynolds actually uses a bleached white paper for their standard line. Now, most modern paper bleaching uses ECF, or elemental chlorine-free, methods. That accounts for about 90 to 96% of global paper production. It's better than the old chlorine gas method, but it still produces trace amounts of chlorinated compounds. The truly clean method is TCF, totally chlorine-free. Only about 4 to 5% of global paper production uses TCF, and it's mostly European manufacturers. Reynolds doesn't use TCF, so you've got detected PFAS plus conventional bleaching on a product that's going into a 400-degree oven and directly touching your food. That's 2 chemical concerns stacked on top of each other from the most trusted name in the category. Bottom line, the most trusted name in the category can't pass an independent lab test. That should tell you everything. Brand number 2, Kirkland's Signature, Costco. Costco shoppers, this one's for you. Kirkland's Signature parchment paper also went through that same EPA-certified lab testing, and it came back with fluorine detected at 12 parts per million. Same situation as Reynolds, below the intentional addition threshold, but still detectable. And Costco has never publicly addressed these findings or made any claims about PFAS-free production. Kirkland doesn't disclose their coating type on their packaging, which is already a red flag. When a brand won't tell you what's on the paper that's going into your oven and touching your food, that silence should concern you. For a company that moves the kind of volume Costco does, millions of rolls per year, even trace levels of PFAS add up across their customer base. You're using this paper every week. Those trace exposures compound over time. And this is important to understand. PFAS don't just disappear after one use. A 2020 study found that children's exposure to PFAS from food packaging alone ranged from 1.06 to 5.67 nanograms per kilogram of body weight per day. The European Food Safety Authority set the safe threshold at 0.63 nanograms per kilogram per day. That means kids are potentially getting exposed at levels up to 9 times the European safety limit just from food packaging. If you're baking with your kids and grandkids, putting cookies on Kirkland parchment paper every weekend, those exposures matter. Children's developing bodies are far more vulnerable to endocrine disruptors than adults. Brand number 3, great value, Walmart. Walmart's store brand hasn't been independently tested by any major investigation that I could find, and that alone is a problem. Great Value provides zero transparency about their coating type, their manufacturing process, or their PFAS status. No third-party certifications, no lab results, nothing. When a major consumer advocacy group conducted a study on food contact papers, they found that 11% of bakery and deli papers tested positive for PFAS. The brands without independent testing and without transparency commitments are exactly the ones that tend to fall into that category. When you think about it, parchment paper goes into a hot oven and sits directly against your food for 20, 30, sometimes 40 minutes. Whatever is in that coating is migrating into what you eat. A brand that won't even tell you what that coating is? That's not a brand worth trusting. If a brand can't or won't tell you what's coating the paper that touches your food at 400 degrees, move on. Brand number 4, SmartAche Parchment Paper. This one's big on Amazon. Over 14,000 reviews, strong ratings, and it's one of the top-selling parchment papers online. But SmartAche has never submitted their product for independent PFAS testing. No EPA-certified lab results. No third-party food safety certifications. They market it as non-stick, but don't clearly disclose what coating creates that non-stick surface. The problem with Amazon Marketplace brands is that supply chains shift constantly. A batch from one factory might be silicone-coated. The next batch from a different factory might use Quilon or something else entirely. Without consistent third-party testing, you have no way of knowing what you're actually getting. And when you're buying in bulk to save money, you're multiplying that risk across every single baking session. Brand number 5, Dixie Pan Liners. Here's where we get into a different chemical concern. Dixie Pan Liners uses Quilon coating, and Quilon is a whole separate issue from PFAS. Quilon is a coating made from trivalent chromium complexed with fatty acids. It's cheaper than silicone, which is why budget brands love it. But the German chemical company that manufactures Quilon-coated papers has stated in their own documentation that Quilon coating creates a potential toxic hazard when incinerated or exposed to very high heat. Now let me put that in perspective. Silicone coating is stable up to 500 degrees Fahrenheit. Most recipes call for oven temperatures between 325 and 450 degrees. Silicone handles that range with no breakdown whatsoever. Quilon, on the other hand, has lower heat resistance and starts degrading sooner. When a coating degrades in your oven, where do those chemical byproducts go? Into the air in your kitchen and onto your food. Chromium compounds are not something you want anywhere near your food, especially at oven temperatures. And Quilon-coated papers are rated for single use only because the coating degrades after one heat cycle. Some people don't know that and reuse them, which makes the exposure even worse. If you see Quilon anywhere on the packaging or in the product description, put it back on the shelf. Brand number 6, Baker's Lane Parchment Paper. Baker's Lane is marketed toward commercial kitchens and food service operations. It's Quilon coated, which they do disclose if you dig into the product specs. The issue here is that a lot of home bakers buy Baker's Lane in bulk from restaurant supply stores or Amazon, thinking they're getting a professional-grade product. Professional grade doesn't mean safe. It means cheap and functional in a high-volume setting where cost matters more than what's leaching into the food. If your local bakery is using Quilon-coated paper, their products might have chromium compounds on the bottom of every cookie and pastry that sits on that paper. Something to think about next time you buy from a bakery that advertises homemade and artisan. Brand number 7, Cucina Prime's Gold Seal 2-Day Ship. I'm grouping these three together because they're essentially the same situation. These are Amazon Marketplace brands that explicitly state they use Quilon coating. To their credit, at least they're honest about it. But honest labeling doesn't make the product safe. Quilon is Quilon, trivalent chromium at oven temperatures touching your food. The fact that these brands are transparent about it might actually make them more dangerous because shoppers see Quilon and have no idea what it means. It sounds technical and harmless. It's neither. Brand number 8, Members Mark, Sam's Club. Sam's Club's store brand, same story as Great Value. No independent testing, no transparency about coating type, No PFAS disclosure. Sam's Club and Walmart are owned by the same parent company, so the lack of transparency runs in the family. When you're buying these warehouse club bulk packs of 200 or 300 sheets, you're committing to hundreds of uses of a product you know nothing about. At least with a small pack, the risk is limited. A bulk purchase from an untested brand is months of unknown chemical exposure. Brand number 9, Highwear Parchment Paper. Another popular Amazon brand with strong sales but zero independent testing or third-party certification. Highwear doesn't disclose their coating type, their manufacturing origin, or their PFAS testing status. The pattern should be clear by now. If a brand's entire marketing strategy is cheap and convenient, with no mention of safety testing, that's not a brand, that's a gamble. And when it comes to something that sits against your food inside a hot oven, gambling with unknown chemicals is not worth the $2 you saved. Brand number 10, Dollar Store/generic brands. This covers all the unbranded or store brand parchment papers you find at Dollar Tree, Dollar General, Family Dollar, and similar discount retailers. These products are sourced from the lowest cost manufacturers available, often with supply chains that rotate regularly. There is essentially zero quality control for chemical safety. No PFAS testing, no coating disclosure, no certifications. A 2022 investigation found that 53% of 118 food packaging items tested contain PFAS indicators. The cheaper and less regulated the product, the higher the likelihood of contamination. If you're saving 50 cents on parchment paper from a dollar store, you're not saving anything. You're just paying the cost later in ways you can't see. And by the way, the brands on the safe list that I'll share in a minute cost about the same as these dollar store options when you buy in bulk. So there's really no excuse. Brand number 11, store brands, Target Up and Up, Kroger, Aldi Crofton. I'm grouping these major store brands together because they all share the same problem. None of them have been independently tested. None of them voluntarily disclose their coating type or PFAS status. And when reached for comment by consumer advocacy groups, most of them either don't respond or give vague statements about meeting all regulatory requirements. Here's the thing about meeting regulatory requirements in the United States. Until very recently, there were essentially no federal PFAS regulations for food contact materials. So saying you meet regulatory requirements meant almost nothing. It was like a restaurant saying, we meet health code, when the health code didn't test for salmonella. That's starting to change. 15 states have now enacted PFAS bans for food packaging with a threshold of 100 parts per million. New York, California, Vermont, Maine, Connecticut, Colorado, Maryland, Minnesota, Hawaii, Oregon, Rhode Island, Illinois, New Hampshire, and New Mexico all have laws on the books. So if you live in one of these states, your store brand parchment paper should technically be getting cleaner. But enforcement is another story entirely. And at the federal level, in January 2025, the FDA declared 35 food contact notifications for PFAS containing materials no longer effective, with a compliance deadline of June 30th, 2025. This was actually a voluntary phase-out by the manufacturers, not a ban. But it means the industry is being forced to move away from PFAS, whether they want to or not. But until every brand can show you a clean lab test we meet, regulations is not good enough, especially when there are brands that can actually prove their product is clean. So those are the 11 brands to avoid. And I know what you might be thinking. If all these brands have problems, is there anything safe to use? Am I just supposed to stop baking? No. You absolutely don't have to stop baking. And honestly, this is the part of the video I was most excited to share with you. Because the safe brands aren't some obscure specialty products you have to order from Europe. They're on Amazon, some of them are in your local grocery store right now, and some of them are actually cheaper per sheet than the brands you're replacing. The key things to look for are silicone coating instead of Kilon, unbleached paper processed with totally chlorine-free methods, and ideally independent lab testing showing non-detect levels of PFAS. If a brand checks at least 2 of those 3 boxes, you're in good shape. Let me give you the 5 brands that check all of them. Brand number 1, If You Care Parchment Paper. This is the gold standard. If you care, Parchment paper was sent to an EPA-certified lab and came back with non-detect levels of PFAS, below 10 parts per million, which is as clean as it gets. But the lab results are just the beginning of why this brand stands out. If you care uses silicone coating, not Quilon. Their paper is unbleached and processed with totally chlorine-free methods, which means zero dioxin risk. They carry the EU Eco label, which requires third-party verification across the entire supply chain. The paper is brown because it's unbleached, which some people find less pretty than white parchment. But that brown color is actually a sign that the paper wasn't processed with chemicals that leave residues. It runs about $5 to $7 for a 70 square foot roll. That's maybe $1 or $2 more than Reynolds. For parchment paper that an EPA lab certified as clean, that price difference is nothing. Available at Whole Foods, most natural grocery stores, Amazon, and increasingly at regular grocery stores. This is the brand I'd recommend to anyone who asks. Number 2, Cat Bite Parchment Paper. If you bake a lot and you go through parchment paper fast, Cat Bite is your best friend. This brand also tested at non-detect levels for PFAS in the same EPA-certified lab study. Cat Bite uses silicone coating and offers both pre-cut sheets and rolls. Their pricing is where they really shine. You can get 200 to 350 pre-cut sheets for $10 to $15 on Amazon. That works out to roughly 3 to 5 cents per sheet, which is actually cheaper than most of the brands on the avoid list. So the argument that safe brands cost more completely falls apart with Cat Bite. You're getting lab-verified clean parchment paper at a lower per-sheet cost than Reynolds or Kirkland. The pre-cut sheets are also a huge convenience factor. No more tearing and trying to get a straight cut from a roll. They lay flat immediately for cookie, sheets, and baking pans. Pre-cut is the way to go. Number 3, Giftbora Parchment Paper. Giftbora is a Finnish brand that also tested at non-detect levels for PFAS in the same EPA-certified lab study. Finland has some of the strictest food safety regulations in Europe, and that shows in the product. Silicone-coated, available on Amazon, priced competitively. The Finnish origin is actually a significant quality signal because European food contact regulations are substantially stricter than American ones. Here's how big the gap is. Denmark was the first country in the world to ban PFAS in food packaging back in July 2020. The EU followed with comprehensive regulations. Starting August 2026, the EU will enforce binding PFAS limits for all food contact materials. Individual non-polymeric PFAS substances capped at 25 parts per billion. The sum of all non-polymeric PFAS capped at 250 parts per billion, and total PFAS, including polymeric forms, capped at 50 parts per million. These are the strictest food contact chemical limits anywhere in the world. And Germany's LFGB standard for food contact materials is considered the gold standard globally. Finnish and Scandinavian manufacturers operate in this regulatory environment, which means their entire supply chain, from raw pulp sourcing to final coating application, is built around chemical safety from the ground up. European brands have been operating under this regulatory pressure for years. American brands are only now being forced to catch up. That's why when you see Made in Finland or Made in Germany on food contact paper, it actually means something. Number 4, Bar Patapar Vegetable Parchment Paper. This one is for the purists. Bar Patapar paper has no coating at all. None. No silicone, no Quilon, no PFAS, no nothing. It's pure sulfurized paper, which means the paper itself was treated with sulfuric acid to create a natural, non-porous surface. This is genuinely the safest option available because there is literally nothing on the paper that could leach into your food. The sulfurization process changes the structure of the paper itself rather than adding a coating on top. The trade-off? It's not quite as non-stick as silicone-coated options. You'll want to lightly dampen it or brush it with a thin layer of oil before use. For things like bread baking and casseroles, it works perfectly. For delicate cookies where sticking is a concern, you might want to use a light grease. It's a bit harder to find than the other brands. Your best bet is Amazon or specialty kitchen supply stores. But if you want the absolute cleanest parchment paper with zero coating chemicals of any kind. This is it. A lot of people who are dealing with chemical sensitivities or autoimmune conditions specifically seek out Patapar for exactly this reason. Nothing on the paper means nothing migrating into the food. Number 5. King Arthur Baking Parchment Paper. King Arthur has been a trusted name in baking for over 230 years. Their parchment paper uses silicone coating and unbleached paper. And while they haven't been through the same EPA-certified independent lab testing as If You Care or Cat Bite, King Arthur's reputation and their commitment to transparency set them apart. They clearly disclose their coating type. They respond to customer inquiries about their sourcing. And they've built a brand around quality baking products that home bakers trust. Sometimes brand integrity and transparency count for a lot, even in the absence of a specific lab result. King Arthur Parchment is available at most grocery stores, their own website, and Amazon. Price slightly higher than budget brands, but absolutely worth it for the peace of mind. If you already buy King Arthur flour, which a lot of serious home bakers do, adding their parchment paper to your cart is an easy switch. Before I wrap up, one more thing. If you really want to eliminate parchment paper, chemicals entirely, consider a silicone baking mat. Brands like Silpat are FDA rated for temperatures up to 500 degrees Fahrenheit and are reusable for over 2,000 baking sessions. A single $20 silicone mat replaces roughly $310 worth of parchment paper over its lifetime. That's not just safer, it's dramatically cheaper in the long run. And it's better for the environment because you're not throwing away paper after every use. The other simple alternatives. Lightly grease your pan with avocado oil, coconut oil, or butter. For things like roasting vegetables, you often don't even need parchment paper at all. A well-seasoned sheet pan or cast iron skillet with a thin coat of oil does the job perfectly. We've been conditioned to think parchment paper is essential. For some things, it's genuinely helpful. Delicate pastries, sticky baked goods, anything with melted cheese. But for a lot of everyday baking and roasting, you have options that don't involve any chemical coatings whatsoever. Your grandparents baked just fine without parchment paper, and so can you for most recipes. So let's recap quickly. The 11 brands to avoid: Reynolds, Kirkland, Great Value, Smart Egg, Dixie Panliners, Baker's Lane, Cucina Prime, Gold Seal, 2-Day Ship, Members Mark, Highware, dollar store generics, and untested store brands like Target, Kroger, and Aldi. The 5 safe brands: If You Care, Cat Bite, Gifbra, Bar Patapar, and King Arthur. And I want to leave you with one more number. A study looking at PFAS exposure and cancer risk found a 56% increased risk of thyroid cancer associated with one specific PFAS compound called NPFOS. Thyroid cancer rates have been climbing for decades, and while PFAS isn't the only factor, it's a controllable one. You can't control the PFAS in your water supply. You can't control the PFAS in the rain, but you absolutely can control the chemicals on the paper that touches your food. The price difference between a brand that failed a lab test and a brand that passed? About $1 to $3. That's it. That's what we're talking about. $1 to $3 to avoid putting forever chemicals on the paper that directly touches your food at 400 degrees. Here's what I'd do if I were you. Go to your kitchen right now. Check what brand you have. If it's on the avoid list, don't panic. Just don't buy it again. Order If You Care or Cat Bite on Amazon tonight, and you'll have clean parchment paper by the end of the week. Next time you're at the store, flip that box over. Look for silicone coating. Look for unbleached. And if the brand can't even tell you what's on the paper, put it back. If this video helped you out, I've got another one on screen right now that covers the same kind of hidden chemicals in a product you probably use every single day. Click it. I think you'll be surprised.